Hello everyone, welcome to Engineering Psychology. Today's topic is, why is everyone so wrong about anger? Ever heard this before? Anger doesn't solve anything. Lighten up. Why are you getting so mad about nothing? Don't be angry. You have anger issues. Well, I'm here to tell you that anger isn't inherently a bad emotion. So what is anger? Well, anger is an emotion generated in your mind resulting from an actual or perceived provocation. It typically lets you know when your boundaries have been violated. Now, what is an emotion? Well, an emotion is the way the mind determines the meaning of a stimulus in a particular environment. It prepares you for a course of action within a particular environment. When you look at anger this way, as simply being an emotion which prepares you for a particular action in an environment which results from an actual or perceived provocation, the emotion of anger is essential, and we probably wouldn't be here as a species without it. For the purposes of this video, I will be focusing on anger which arises when in contact with other people. Now, before I continue, I want to make a distinction between non-dysfunctional anger and dysfunctional anger. Dysfunctional anger is an anger response triggered by a stimulus or stimuli, which typically should not trigger an anger response. A typical example of a dysfunctional emotion would be something like, for example, feeling angry when you see a brown belt in a clothing store. Dysfunctional anger is typically, but not always, the result of experiencing trauma at some earlier stage in one's life. In reference to the brown belt example, one could feel angry when seeing a brown belt, maybe perhaps because one was commonly beaten by a brown belt or beaten with a brown belt in one's childhood. In this video, I will be focusing on non-dysfunctional anger, or what I will refer to from this point on as simply anger. Now, back to the topic of anger. Why is the emotion of anger important in your everyday life? Well, as mentioned before, anger lets you know when your boundaries have been violated, and it prepares you for a course of action. The course of action could simply be stating your honest emotional experience in the environment that you're in. Hopefully, as a result of expressing your honest emotional experience, people will take steps to try to understand and avoid triggering your anger response. This is a great emotion to have because it prevents people from stepping all over you and crossing your boundaries and even potentially harming you. Now, why do people say things like, don't be angry, lighten up, you have anger issues, or something else to try to get you to suppress your anger? Assuming the anger response is dysfunctional, there are several reasons that I can think of, each of which is wrong in my opinion. The first reason is because they themselves do not understand anger, usually because they've been told to suppress anger when they were a child, and they were taught that anger is inherently a bad thing. Because they are constantly suppressing their anger, whenever they do express their anger is usually a sort of over-the-top response, which usually isn't commensurate with respect to what actually happened in the environment they were in. If any of you have seen The Simpsons, there's an episode where Ned Flanders, who is typically a nice guy and never appears to get angry, goes berserk over something he really shouldn't have went berserk over. In the same episode, it's just a scene from his childhood where he is shown and he is taught to suppress his anger. When you're taught that anger is bad, you end up suppressing the emotion. Now, when you suppress emotions don't just go away. The emotion is supposed to get you out of a situation that could potentially harm you. Because you suppress the emotion, you stay in harm's way, thus resulting in the anger building and building. Eventually the anger erupts, and typically when it does erupt, it's not in a way that is commensurate with respect to the event that triggered the anger in the first place. The response is usually over the top, and because of the response is over the top, it makes you, or at least validates a previous thought that anger is inherently bad, and the cycle tends to repeat itself. Be that Ned Flanders. Another reason why people tell you to suppress your anger is because the people around you are actually trying to harm you. They don't want you to process your anger, because if you process your anger, they're not going to be able to harm you. A good example of this would be, like, let's say, example of quote-unquote friend who is using manipulation to control your behavior or to exploit you. Your anger, if realized, will not let them get very far with this. The last reason I can think of is because the person who's giving you advice is a complete idiot who's just following what everyone else says. Of course, you should never take advice from complete idiots. Embrace your anger. Let it protect you.